Okay, great. Thank you. We have a lot of people going on tonight. I have about 37 active participants. So let's see if we can keep on going down the list here and have people introduce themselves, although this is starting to get a little bit unwieldy. Lizzie Newell.
Yeah, hi. Lizzie Newell. I'm in Independence Park neighborhood.
Okay, great. Let's see. Marilyn Russell, would you like to introduce yourself? Familiar with Marilyn, and if she's not going to unmute herself.
I thought I was on mute. Sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Marilyn Russell, and
you're a resident of the Abbott Loop Community Council.
On the solid waste services.
Okay. So since we have so many people, I would like to remind people to please mute your...
another place.
Yeah. I'm going to ask people to mute themselves if they're not actively talking so that we don't get background noise and so forth.
Bruce,
yes?
Pat Higgins is also here.
Two people on this particular website, Pat and Patty.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Let's see. I'm sure there are other people that I have not introduced yet. Susanna Caldwell.
Hi there, I'm Susanna Caldwell. I'm the recycling coordinator at Solid Waste Services, and I'm here to answer any recycling questions and then to answer any questions people might have on the Central Transfer Station project.
Okay, great, thank you. I think we're getting on and it's really time to start the meeting. If anybody else would like to introduce themselves, please do so quickly. Otherwise, I think I'd like to go ahead and start the meeting.
Hey, yeah, Marilyn Russell here. I just want to finish that I recently moved down to Anchorage from Fairbanks, where I lived for 45 years, and I'm a retired teacher. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sure, thank you. Anybody else want to?
Oh, yeah, I'm Rachel Lulke. I live in the district.
Okay. Okay. Any other presenters or residents who'd like to introduce themselves before we start? Okay, hearing none for the moment. I will go ahead and start here. I'm Bruce Roberts. I'm the president of the Abbott Loop Community Council. And normally we start with a round of introductions in our meeting. When we start to get up toward people, it gets a little bit unwieldy. Usually in our in-person meetings, it goes fairly quickly and easily. And are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, then the agenda is approved as published. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from last month's meeting? Which was also a very active meeting with about 48 people in attendance. Okay. How about the treasurer's report?
No change from last meeting, still $258.14.
Okay. Yep. I don't see our community patrol officer online tonight, Officer Coates, or another representative. Eddie, do you see anybody representing the police department? So I guess we don't have a chance to get an update tonight. Usually like to let them check in early, depending on their availability. They often have to go off to other calls or activities.
So let's
go.
Bruce, we told them that we would let them say whatever they wanted to say whenever they could chime in, knowing that they could be on a call at any time.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's move on to legislative reports. Sheila Cernich, I think you would like to give a report for Senator Reback.
I'm going to be very brief because I know we are in time constraints. Right now, the biggest question is, when is the unemployment going to come out? Everybody's very desperate for that money to come out. Unfortunately, they had a test run, and 2 of them, and they have 2 glitches in them, and they can't seem to get those glitches fixed. Unfortunately, they can't use FEMA money to pay it, or use FEMA money to work on their computer systems, and they can't use FEMA's computer system. So there's a problem. And I believe the governor spoke about it, and it's going to be in the newspaper in the morning. So there'll be information about that. I will post 3 email addresses or places where you can contact for different things tonight that I'm talking about. The one thing I discussed last week is there is a legal service available for people that are trying to navigate the grant funding, and the grant funding should be closing November the 30th, and I will post that information as well. Other than that, the hospitality industry is going to be getting more money, and the grant, and they're trying to apply for it now, and the end of that application process will be November 30th. But the state is trying to do everything they can for the hospitality industry. Other than that, I don't really have anything unless somebody has a question for me.
Anyone have questions for Sheila or Senator Reback?
And I will post these websites on the chat box so people can have them if they want to contact me.
All right. I don't believe we have any representation from Representative Mel Gillis or Representative Gladys Shaw. Or Sheila, do you want to give us an update on those?
On what?
Representative Gillis or Representative Shaw?
No, I have nothing to report from either one of them.
Okay, moving on to the Assembly. Felix, I have you up first. Would you like to start with an Assembly report?
Sure, happy to. I think there are 3 of us on here, so I won't give too much. I'll make sure that there's plenty for John and Meg to talk about. So, a few things. Actually, I'll let John or Meg talk about Christian Health Associates, but so I will, though, talk about the building codes, because I saw that it's on your agenda under new business.
About the fire sprinklers?
Yeah. So,
okay. If I give you a quick update on that.
Okay. I was going to give the update, but go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that there won't be a presentation or discussion about that tonight. So if you give us the update, that would be fine.
Great. Yeah. And so the update is the Assembly took action on the item this last Tuesday, and an amendment put forward by John Weddleton handled this issue that Bill Taylor was going to talk about. And Bill Taylor, he actually testified and reached out to many Assembly members, including myself, about this. And so we all got educated on the topic and unanimously supported John Weddleton's amendment. And so I know that was a big issue for this community council, for several other Hillside and Chugiak Eel River community councils. Then the Assembly is going to be considering on December 8th a package that the administration and APD put together to do a series of IT upgrades that are, in APD's opinion, fairly essential for them to modernize and get to the 21st century. They're operating on some old
I should
software.
look up their voting records to see if they're independents or Democrats.
Sorry, if folks can mute themselves, that'd be great.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm going to be muting people as well if they're not talking or not actively meant to be talking. So if you find yourself muted and you didn't expect to be, I'm trying to only keep the active talking people and myself unmuted. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So, right. So, like I was saying, APD's IT systems are somewhat out of date, and so they're needing to do a pretty fresh overhaul of their IT system. So I'm going to throw a few acronyms at you. These are the items that APD would like to get upgraded through a special tax levy, which, if the Assembly approves on December 8th, will be sent to the voters for approval. So in the end, it's going to be your decision, our decision as a community, on whether to approve this special tax levy. So APD is looking to upgrade their CAD RMS system, their DEM system, and part of the system is also BWCs. And so the last one, I will tell you what that one is, because that I think is the one that will likely get the most attention and interest from the public, and that is body-worn cameras. It's something that APD is actually very supportive of. Command staff at APD is supportive of it, as well as officers on the street. They see it as both a protection measure for the officers and the public writ large. So again, that is going to be deliberated on December 8th. We have a couple of work sessions between now and December 8th before we take that vote. Then I want to talk about the MLMP sale. So the MLMP sale is going to be official and finalized, and the last paperwork is going to be signed tomorrow. And so I think there's actually going to be a little bit of a virtual press event to commemorate, celebrate, inform the public about the sale, finalization of the sale, and what that means for the community. For folks in this community council area, it's not going to have as many impacts as it would for, let's say, if you lived downtown or in Airport Heights. You would see much more impact there. And then the last thing I'll talk about is the 2021 proposed budgets. And actually, what I will mention is the capital budget, and then I'll leave the operating budget to my colleagues. So in regards to the capital budget, there is this great map. I'll show you the paper copy of the map, but you can find the map online, so you can just download it as a PDF. So they have a great map that you can look, and it has all of the capital projects. There are 3 capital projects proposed for this community council area, and so if approved, they would be on the bonds for April of next year. They are the Quinnahock Street upgrade, East Dowling Road to Ascalon Drive, the Hacienda Drive drainage improvements, and the Zodiac Manor subdivision area surface rehab, phase 1. So those are the 3 projects that are in the community council area. And looking forward to the process that the Assembly is going to go through for the different proposed budgets. We're planning to vote on the budget on November 17th, the budgets on November 17th. We have 2 more public hearings planned, one on November 4th, next Wednesday, and then a 3rd public hearing hasn't been scheduled yet, but I've let the public know about it, and that is on Tuesday, November 10th, and then we vote on the 17th. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleagues.
Take it away, Meg.
All right, thanks, John. Hi, everyone. I'm Meg Zolifal, Anchorage Assembly in Midtown. You are a community council who is lucky to be on a border district with 2 representatives from South Anchorage, John and Suzanne, and then Midtown, Felix and myself. So there are 4 of us that will rotate in and out of your meetings. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the operating budget, and I put some links there in the chat where you can find the MOA 2021 proposed budget. The alcohol tax budget, if you wanted to find that, is Appendix R contained within the budget. Also, the Assembly work session web pages where you can find out or see the handouts we have during work sessions, because there will be work sessions coming up and continued work sessions on the budget. So I just wanted to make sure you all had those handy. So the proposed funding total for 2021 for operating is $548 million. And about 58.5% of that comes from property taxes, and the rest comes from other funding sources. And as most people know, but I like to highlight it, the top 4 areas we spend money on in the municipality in order that we spend them on is police, fire, debt service, so paying our debts, and maintenance and operations, making sure our roads get plowed. So just like to give that context to the budget. The budget this year versus proposed budget versus for 2021 versus this year would be an estimated $100 increase in property taxes to a $350,000 home. The property in that's about a $6.8 million increase to the budget. So those, if you hop on that budget link I put in the chat, there's a really great overview slideshow for 2021. We do have some revenue challenges like with bed tax, vehicle rental tax, but we also have the MLNP sale and the dividend generated off of that. And then we have the alcohol tax budget, which we can't replace any current municipal services, but some can be scaled. So we're sitting okay. I think there's some work being done to talk about what are the COVID impacts going to look like on municipal operations in 2021. There were some changes made in first quarter budget revisions last year in April that really started to respond to COVID. We always go with the continuation budget, as many of you know. So anything that was taken out in first quarter budget revisions last April is automatically added back in. So you'll see travel back in the budget, and you might scratch your head and wonder why in COVID times why there's travel. So that'll be part of the discussion, is what are we planning for in the municipality for 2021. And then the alcohol tax budget, when you look at it there in Appendix R, it does look different than if you'd been tracking what the Assembly had proposed out of its 3 committees. We were going to have a work session tomorrow on the alcohol tax, but we've actually bumped that a part of a week, about a half week, to see if there isn't more alignment that can be found between what was discussed at the town halls through the alcohol tax proposals and what the municipality or the administration has put forward. So we are deep into the budget. It's many, many binders, but happy to answer any questions. If you get some time to spend with the budget and you're not seeing something that you think should be a priority or you have questions about it, I'll toss my email in the chat for everyone. Happy to try to answer your questions or track down the answer to your question. And then there will be these 2 additional opportunities to testify on the budget, as well as Felix mentioned. And I think it's really important, particularly if you can testify on the 4th or the 10th, because we will be working on the Assembly members' budget amendments between the 10th and the 13th. So you can really tell us what you think and influence what we might be bringing forward for amendments. So I'll stop there. I just wanted to concentrate on the operating budget and the budget generally, the process we're going through, since there are a lot of new faces, and turn it over to John.
Well, thanks, Megan. Felix, I'm going through my notes here and see if anything else is big happened. There was a resignation. Oh, the mayor resigned. That was news. For anybody who's paying attention, he resigned, but his staff did not resign. And Mayor Berkowitz had a very special ability to attract amazing people who are very dedicated to Anchorage, and they continue to work very hard. So we're not a ship adrift at all. and he resigned, but all the challenges and opportunities that we faced before are still there, and we're all working on those. So things are very much the same despite that surprising event. And you got all the budget numbers or the overview from Felix and Meg, and I want to throw in something a little bit to make Felix blush, I guess. But as chair, Felix has done something that I have not seen, didn't see in my prior years before he got on there and got on as chair, and that is where the assembly has really taken on what really is our duty to direct what goes into the budget. And he started us in the spring and in the early summer talking about things that we want to see in the budget and direction we want it to take. And we have that prepared before the administration starts piecing it together. And we did pretty good on that sort of last year. For this year's budget, it was much better. And I expect in the third year of doing that, we will kind of take on what is really properly our role, providing a little more direction on the budget. So thank you, Felix, for that. I think it's something that most people won't see. Christian Health Associates, that is related to the state is doing the underpass on the Seward Highway, and they are going to bring it up Academy to where it T-bones with the Vanguard, and then pretty much left it there, which required that the city do a project to handle what is now about 1,500 cars a day and is then projected to be 10,000 cars a day, which would be at a stop sign. So that would be a problem. So the project initially was thought to be about $8 million, and we would reroute Vanguard and Academy a little bit, so it'd go right through the Christian Health Associates building that's right at the intersection there. As things evolved and the cost of that project started approaching $25 billion, we rethought it a bit and said, well, maybe this should use our federal funds. And that unfortunately delays the project quite a bit. So we're kind of in this interesting situation where we really still do have a kind of city Anchorage Road drainage service area project, and we did some bond money to buy right away. We approved it in our ballot, really focused on buying Christian Health Associates, and then we also switched it to a federal program using what we call AMATS money. And what we did on Tuesday was agreed to use some of that ARDSA money, the city money, to buy Christian Health Associates now. So they're actively doing that, so it should happen fairly soon, and buy that building and then rent it back to them at $1 a year. And that's quite a special deal, but they were hanging in limbo now for several years. They thought they'd be bought out a few years ago, and things got hung up and the price went up, and we postponed it to make the primary federal project. And so we're just kind of getting them out of that purgatory that buildings can end up in when road projects take a long time to finish. It should be a couple of years now before we get the planning done for that road, and probably 3 or 4 before that project would be built. The state's a little bit ahead of us, so we'll see what happens when traffic starts coming underneath that highway and hitting that stop sign. But that's the Christian Health Associates update. They seem happy, and it seems like a fair agreement to kind of get them where they thought they'd be a couple years ago. What else has happened here? Building code we talked about. Now, it wasn't only about sprinklers, but that was the main issue that came up. And the amendment that was approved to kind of remove what was sort of a sprinkler requirement for new construction was also with Forrest Dunbar and Crystal Kennedy. And, sprinklers, the requirement didn't sit well with us, but sprinklers in homes are actually a pretty good thing. They're expensive, but it'd be nice to have when you need them. So Crystal and I are working on an ordinance that would create an incentive for people to have sprinklers in their homes. And, we did have for a while a 2% rebate for commercial buildings that had sprinklers. We removed that last year because they were required by the state anyway, so it didn't really make sense. But we'll be looking at just replicating that for residential buildings, and just to create a little bit of a small incentive for people to put those in, help themselves and help the fire department out. I think those are some highlights for now. If there's any questions, you got 3 of us here. Thanks.
Okay. I guess I'll start with a question from the chat line. iPhone, if you would like to identify yourself and ask your question, otherwise I can read it. and I'll continue. It says the police department was left out of the alcohol tax allocation. I voted for the tax because it would go to APD. Do our representatives advocate for adding some funding for APD from the alcohol tax money, or do they feel it's fine the way it is?
I can
Who first?
I can take a crack at it. So when we originally asked for various proposals from departments, APD had put forward one, which was mainly equipment related, and they have chosen to go the route of this tax levy instead that Felix described for the pieces that they had originally put in the alcohol tax, put in their alcohol tax proposal. It's not, the bucket or the dedication is not just APD, it's public safety. So it's fire. We've been looking at the prosecutor's office. And so the prosecutor's office did put forward a request for additional help in prosecuting domestic violence cases. And I know that there are members who are interested in putting that back or putting that into the budget. And similarly, there are members interested in bringing on a mental health first responders, which would give some relief to APD. APD is supportive of the idea of having some non-sworn staff, mental health clinician go and respond to a number of calls where they are currently there and responding because there's no one else. And if I am mistaken that the request was also for detectives and non-sworn personnel, I apologize. Currently, I did not see anything come through in the alcohol tax proposal submitted by the administration that was specifically for APD. But I know that we've been concentrating on public safety as a whole, particularly through the DV support as well as the mental health first responders. And I support doing that work.
And I'll add just a little bit, and then I don't know if John wants to add anything. So the proposal that the administration put forward, I think, to be frank, I do not support good chunks of the proposal. I think it's a very odd proposal that they put forward, and in some places not really representative of what I thought that tax should go towards. So I do believe that we need to put more money towards the public safety piece. And from my perspective, and APD to a degree agrees with this, public safety is not just putting money into the police department. It can take on a lot of different ways for us to tackle public safety with not just increasing our number of police officers. So what Meg mentioned, the mental health first response, is actually something that APD and particularly Deputy Chief McCoy is really supportive of the concept of mental health first responders. He's gone and toured a lot of different locations in the lower 48 that have implemented this successfully, where the police departments and the mental health first responders work hand in hand to reduce the instances where police officers need to go out on calls to non-violent situations, and instead it's more of a focus on mental health. So I am excited to see us transition into that direction collaboratively with APD.
I could add just a little bit there. I think those are real good points. And like when I looked at the proposed use of the alcohol tax, I was surprised how it did not really parallel where we seem to be hovering as an assembly. One thing to notice though is it only looks at 9 million in the alcohol tax, which I think is as high as I want to go now, though we do expect it to raise 11 to 15 million. We just didn't want to budget for more than that without knowing. And as time goes on, you will get a better sense for how stable those numbers are. But should it come in at 11, 12, or 13, then there's more money that would go to more of the items that are on our list for it. I would look. We do have commitment in this budget to add year-round abatement of camps, and we can only do that to the extent that there's places, shelter for people to go into. But as we move towards that. That abatement requires more police present to go around to those camps when they're posted and closed down. So I think it would be fair under the alcohol tax to, use some of that money to cover the cost of that. But I think that our next meeting on this will be a lively discussion on this. We'll get things back more towards where we were. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for our assembly members before we move on?
Bruce, I saw something, I think, a note from Jared Dunbar about sprinklers for single family home. And if I could address that real quick.
Sure.
And Jared, that's was not really the case. It was there was a proposal in the building code to require sprinklers in homes that were more than 600 feet away from a reliable firefighting water source. So that would not be most of the urban area, but it would be hillside, String-and-Arm Girdwood, and lots of Eagle River. So that would be a real challenge and something fairly new. We did an amendment that exempted single-family, two-family townhouses and any related accessory structures. So that really won't apply. And it was only for new construction. So that's something we cleaned up on Tuesday. Thanks.
And I might comment too on that the builders seem relatively happy with that amendment or exemption. And that's why Bill Taylor from Colony Builders won't be presenting tonight, because they feel like they've already gotten what they were asking for. Lizzie Newell, do you have a question?
Yeah, I want to ask about the election for the mayor. How many elections are we going to have to do?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So on November 4th, speaking of elections after elections, we are going to be discussing two proposals that have been brought forward around filling the vacancy of the mayor. So one of them is brought forward by Assembly members Allard, Kennedy, and Perez Verdia, and it's a resolution to set a special election for January 26th to fill the vacancy of the mayor. That's the soonest that we could have such an election. Just sort of walking through that proposal, what would happen is we would have the first election on January 26th, likely a runoff sometime in February. Then we would have the regular election in April, and then likely another runoff in May. So talking about 4 elections in the span of 5 months. What's that look like fiscally? That looks like 3 elections not included in the budget currently. So roughly, if you add them up, and it's roughly about $950,000, so almost $1 million. That's not included in the budget currently that we would have to find money for. So from my perspective, I think it adds a lot of confusion, instability, and consternation that's I don't think is necessarily needed. There's another proposal that John could probably speak more towards, and it's his proposal to seat the mayor elected normally in April sooner than July 1st, which July 1st is the date set out in code. So running through that proposal, assuming April election, then a runoff in May, we would John's proposal would require us to seat them as soon as practicable after we certify the election in May. So it would be probably a month and a half sooner than normal. So those are the two proposals we're deliberating on November
4th. Dustin, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah. Actually, I got a couple questions for the assembly members. So I have a friend of mine that's tuning in but can't speak up on here. So they want to know, did they just say that APD was more or less interested in using alcohol tax money for maintenance and not law enforcement? That's how it was presented to the citizens. So does one of you want to address that? And the other question I have was, when did APD make their request, before or after the assembly passed the alcohol tax?
Okay, I can take a stab at those. So when we started, I'll take them in inverse order.
Okay.
When we started talking about the alcohol tax after it passed, through, I believe it was the Public Safety Committee meeting, and then, yeah, it was believe through the Public Safety Committee meeting was the first time we kind of had departments start to bring in that public safety bucket any proposals forward for alcohol tax funds. So that was the first time we heard like specific proposals from the department. And then we continued to refine those through to where the Public Safety Committee put forward a recommended proposal during our town halls and discussed that. So APD made the request after the tax was passed. In terms of did APD request maintenance funds, I'm not familiar with did they just request maintenance funds. What I can tell you as of right now, I'm not hearing from APD a big push for any particular funds out of the alcohol tax.
Okay.
So if they have a proposal that isn't put forward that they would want us to fund that the administration didn't put forward, they would let us know. They speak up for themselves very well. And I'm not hearing that. And maybe some of the other members are, because I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing more that we're looking at public safety as a whole. And we've been talking about things like mental health first responders and the DV prosecutor as more specific, well-defined proposals for alcohol tax funds, which does have cost deferment for APD because it would be officers not going on calls that would go out through another entity, so or another dispatched service with a mental health clinician instead of a police officer.
Okay. I have one more question for the assembly members, then I'm done. This one actually goes toward the sprinkler systems that you guys had, and I was there on Tuesday night, so I got a chance to listen to some of that. The one thing I would ask, and I have a few friends of mine that are both contractors and homeowners. The one thing that's not covered, and this is what they're worried about, just so that you guys understand, is the new homes that you guys are talking about building, the single family homes with the sprinklers getting put into it. A lot of people that I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people because I work in the public eye, is they're worried about their homes that they're currently in. And anytime anything's passed, then things seem to etch their way into it to where it affects maybe other homes or whatever. A lot of people are worried that they're going to be stuck with the house that they're in. If they decide to want to sell it down the road, that they may end up getting stuck putting sprinklers in that house before they can sell it. And I know that, you're looking at new construction right now, but eventually, if it works out and everything's good, then they're going to start pushing stuff toward existing homes. That's what I keep hearing, just so you guys understand that.
Can I address that?
Sure.
Bruce? Yeah, thanks, Dustin. Well, I say one thing on that is unanimously we deleted the section we modified the section that would require sprinklers so that they won't be required. So that's off the shelf.
Good.
There are, the idea, I mean, it certainly could happen that requirements, made in one aspect could flow down to existing homes, but that's not typically what's done. The building code is revised in Anchorage every 6 years. So we have homes that are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're exempted. Right. So they're exempted from it. So you can sell it. So most homes, when they're sold, don't meet the current building code requirements. It really just applies to the new ones. And where there's a disadvantage in general, the building codes make for better houses. So, older houses aren't as attractive because the new ones are better. But, so it's price makes up the difference. So that's not something that's been a fact. And in fact, when you go to a loan, you get a loan, they're not looking at, you're not up to the building code, so we won't give you a loan. I mean, there might be some, you have to have fire smoke detectors and so on, and that every house has to have that no matter how old. So there's some things like that get kind of flow down to every structure, but that's very rare, and that's something that's cheap and obviously very important to have.
Yeah, I think with the citizens and stuff that I've talked to about it, and a lot of them don't understand it. So thank you for answering that. The thing that people continue to see is, once the city government or whatever passes something, it gives kind of an opening for something else to continue to keep getting added onto it. So that's all.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. So Sheila Cernich, you have your hand up. Would you like to ask your question next?
Yes, I first have to give you guys the sense of I am now speaking as a resident of District 25 and no longer as a legislative aide. District 25 is my district, so I'd like to have my personal comments made personal. I have a question in regards to the mayor's how he or she is going to be elected or done. Is there going to be public comment on this issue?
Felix, would you like to take that?
Hold on. Yeah, happy to talk about that. So there are going to be public comment in two different ways. So first is, and we actually heard some of this on Tuesday, so the Assembly has general audience participation both at the beginning and at the end of our meetings, where members of the public can give comment on any topic on the agenda or off the agenda. And so on Tuesday, we actually did hear some public comment from folks weighing in on this topic, and they had a variety of different opinions from the public that we heard on Tuesday. The second option that folks can come to testify is on John's ordinance, because John's ordinance is it changes our code, so that automatically requires a public hearing. So that is going to be happening on November 4th.
I was speaking in general of the mayor's race, whether if we have public comment on whether we appoint or have a special election.
Yes, and John's ordinance gets to that. It's one of the options for deciding how to fill the vacancy.
So there will be public comment on whether or not we fill the vacancy with a special election, or we just go ahead and have the mayor wait until April, and then we have an election and stays in office until July. Is that correct?
There will be the opportunity for the public to weigh in on that, yes.
Okay. I noticed that one community council had a resolution to put a resolution forward that would happen.
Bruce, can I address that a bit?
Sure.
The idea of public comment on Assembly actions, a lot of times people focus on those 3 minutes you get in front of us at the Assembly meeting. And those are valuable minutes. But public comment is vastly more than that. That is the smallest little component in truth. And what really works tremendous is you send emails to us, you call us prior to the meetings, and we have discussions and share some knowledge. And those 3 minutes when you come up should really be just kind of putting an exclamation mark after what you've sent in an email or called us about. Another really important component of public input is community council meetings. So these discussions that we have here are very valuable.
Yes.
And I think that's why all of us go to these community councils, where we get this kind of discussion, which is just tremendous. So the 3 minutes at the Assembly is not your most effective bit of communication with Assembly members. It's this kind of discussion.
And if I could just add on to that before we move on, that this discussion at community councils is a back and forth, where your 3-minute presentation at the Assembly chambers, you're just able to talk for up to 3 minutes. You can't really ask any questions or expect any feedback. So it's more of a one-way communication typically.
May I speak on that?
Sure.
I understand, Mr. Wendleton, that's exactly right, that your 3 minutes doesn't mean as much as emails from the public. What it does do, though, is it notifies the public if they're watching the municipality assemblies on whatever channel we watch it on. If they're watching it, it reaches a lot more people, that those people know that other people are interested in, want to know what's going on. An email to you just is between you and me.
Yeah, appreciate that. That's a good viewpoint.
I'd like to move on at this point. I don't believe we have our school board member represented at our community council meetings for a few months now. So Andy Holloman, would you like to jump in and give us?
Bruce, you had a couple of more questions for council members?
We do.
Yes, and multiple people have their hands up. Multiple people have their hands up.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, I wasn't seeing those then.
Just for a little information, I've been attending like 7 of these in the last couple of weeks, community councils. One of the things about the special election and the runoff that wasn't said is once that goes January and February and you keep going into these elections, you're going to have ballots going in from the runoffs while the ballots are going out for the election, which is going to really be confusing to a lot of people. So keep that in mind if we do want a special election, that you're going to be confused with ballots going in and out all the time too. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Hey, I don't see anybody else with their hand up.
I've got one quick question.
Sure.
Can you hear me? I wanted to second what John Wilton said. I just recently started reaching out, and I think Felix, Susan, and John have all been pretty receptive. And when I've called, and it's a great discussion over the phone, or even emails, they've all responded. So sometimes you get more feedback and more understanding, I guess. I have found that through that route, and they've been pretty responsive. So I wanted to second what John said. And then the last question, I'll be really quick, is if they do have a special election and it goes to a runoff, how quickly do you guys think be able to see someone in that position after a runoff? How far does that go into February, I guess?
Yeah, good question. So the clerk answered that at a work session that we had. So assuming we have a runoff in February, it typically takes a couple of weeks after the election day to certify the election. So it would be, let's say, February 1, we have the election. February 15, we certify the election. The clerk's advice is that right after we certify, whoever wins could be seated in and fill the vacancy of the mayor.
Okay. Christy Luttrell, do you still have a question, or has that been answered for you?
I do actually have a question. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, we can.
My internet's a little bit lagging. My question is there's been some discussion, and I don't really have any idea what the answer might be, but there's something in the municipal charter about a day period. Can anybody explain what that means and how that affects the election for the mayor?
Sure, I can take a crack at that, and we can put the link. I believe it's on the website. Our municipal attorney and our assembly council weighed in on this situation, and they made their memorandum public. So I'll dig it up here after I get done talking. So the language we're working with is we cannot have a special election in less than 90 days. We need to wait at least 90 days in order to have a special election to fill the vacancy. But there is not an outward timeline, so it doesn't say not more than anywhere there. And so that becomes the point of conversation or the point of analysis and the question of how the timing would work, both with having a runoff election, a special election, special runoff election, and then the already regularly scheduled election, particularly given that we do mail-in elections, and then the time for certification, because it's not just an election in that it stands alone. It has all the pieces to an election, and I think that's important to remember. A special election has voter registration and voter registration cutoffs, candidate registrations. So I will see if I can also find the timeline the clerk put out with the work session and put both those links in the chat. I hope you can access the chat. So that you can kind of see what the analysis has been that's been given to members, and I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I've seen all of that and I've read all of that. It just sometimes it's a little overwhelming for somebody who's not an attorney to just kind of absorb what it all means. So thank you very much.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I have one hand left up. Mark Briscorn.
Yes. So, John, you were talking about a tax incentive for putting sprinklers in houses. What would that look like?
You know, it's really kind of, we just have the bones of it right now, so I'm not sure, but we had a 2% rebate for commercial properties that had sprinklers, and that was on the books for many years and paralleled something that was in state law. And I think the state removed it, and then we did. I think it might have been earlier this year. So it would be, so, and this is very conceptual. I don't have it really written up. It's not in ordinance form yet. It's not been introduced, but it would be, you know, and we're starting to look at 2%, and that would be, you know, once they, you know, they'd have to show that they had it inspected, you know, and I would guess the inspector could just send a note to the, you know, assessor and say, hey, this system was tested positive or whatever, and then they get their 2%, which won't be a lot of money. You know, most of these homes that would do it in the areas where, you know, newer home, if it didn't, you know, 2% is not a huge amount, and until you got into about a $600,000-$700,000 house, that 2% would probably just cover the cost of the annual inspection you have to do. So it's not, you know, there's no real return on investment on the sprinklers in terms of that. But it would be some incentive, and I think also just a way to let people know that there's such a thing as a home sprinkler. Because, you know, until we got into this with the building code back in August, I had no idea there was such a thing. And, you know, they're $20,000 to, you know, $40,000. It depends on how big your house is. But, you know, a lot of amazing homes full of really expensive stuff. It seems like that's not a big cost, you know, to protect your lives and your house, you know. So rather than, you know, impose it as a requirement, this would be a small incentive. So that's the direction we're looking at. But I'm interested, if you've seen something similar or have some ideas, send them my way.
Oh, by all means, we can talk. I was on the committee that adopted the IFC. I've been on the IFC code committee since 2000. And
oh, great.
I can tell you, more than you ever want to know or listen to at this meeting, about sprinklers and why they haven't been put in homes since they were actually, the code actually requires them in homes since 2000, but the state and the community have always been amending them out for various reasons. So yeah, we can talk about it at great length. But anyway, I'm glad to hear that they're at least taking the more positive approach instead of the forcing approach, you know, the carrot instead of the stick.
Yeah, send me an email. I'll call you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Any other questions? Susan, do you want to say yours, or are we good to go?
No, I just made a comment in the chat. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on to the school board. Andy Holloman, do you want to give us a quick update, or?
Yes, I'll try to make it real quick. The most boring thing first, the school board is starting a budget process. We've got a timeline where we have to have it to the assembly for their approval. But we start kind of early. This year is certainly more confusing than just about any other year. We've got extra costs associated with doing distance delivery. We also have a lot of reduced costs because we're doing distance delivery. We're not sure how many students we're going to have when everything all shakes out. So it continues to be a year of uncertainty. But we'll start producing it. We lead towards a pro forma budget that'll be available to the public in December, which kind of lays out our vision for what we think is going to happen in the coming year. And at that point, people can see it and have some input. One thing we are really enjoying not doing, which some people thought we'd do anyway, we do not have a bond proposal coming in the spring. We're not preparing one. There isn't much way there could be one. As you recall, that was a promise with last year's proposal that it would be a 2-year bond proposal. We're spreading that work out over a couple of years. It is letting the district plan into the future more, and a tremendous amount of time not spent by staff and the board in preparing one. So that'll be a bond holiday from ASD for this spring. Along those lines, sometime recently, and I think it was after I spoke to you last time, and this really applied to both the muni and the school board, FEMA had a requirement that anything they provided funds for due to earthquake damage had to be insured against earthquake damage into perpetuity. And we couldn't find very many underwriters that would underwrite one of our buildings entirely. Two, the cost of a policy like that was running about 10% of the value. So there were several places that would offer, say, $10 million of coverage, but the premium was around $1 million a year. So the reality was, if you could get through 9 years without an earthquake and be setting money aside, you came out to the good over buying an insurance policy. Working with the Muni and with our federal representatives, we've gotten FEMA to waive that because really it was looking like it might not make financial sense to take money from FEMA for greening school, for Eagle River Elementary, and some of the other damage that should be FEMA reimbursable. So we're moving ahead on trying to get that money coming. The last and the biggest thing, as you know, we had hoped to start back in August. The number of community cases went up above a threshold that was set, and we waived that off. We had a slightly higher threshold, more complex set of thresholds for October. Community spread increased again, and we kind of waived that off. We are now tentatively set to bring back pre-K students through second grade on November 16th. And along with that would also be what we call self-contained SPED through grade 6. Those are students that are in SPED classes all day that aren't part of a general ed classroom. Involves our life skills classes and other kids that need more than your average attention from their SPED teachers. We're getting a lot of feedback from the community, both for and against continuing this. Obviously, the plan was laid out not quite, well, about a week and a half ago at the last board meeting. Since then, we've seen a dramatic increase in the community spread. So it will be a point of discussion at the next board meeting. I'll put the email address in the contact or in the chat for sending an email to all board members at once and to the superintendent. If you have strong feelings on it, I would urge you to email us, give us some idea of what your thinking is on it. Like I said, we're getting a lot of discussion both ways. Some people absolutely want schools to open soon so their kids can be back in. A lot of other people are very worried about the possibility of transmission in school and what that might do to further drive the community numbers. I think those are the big highlights. If anyone has a question, happy to try to answer.
Yeah, I think Dustin Sherman has his hand up, so if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, and this actually, so I actually got a chance to sit in one of the school board meetings a week or so ago. Well, that was an interesting process, and I got to hear Mr. Holloman on the phone while I was there. So my question is, I know right now with the COVID stuff and the kids not being in school and everything, and the enrollment is really down. I know that East High School, they had voted on changing the name of that school. Do we have any idea how much that's going to end up costing to get that all done? I know they're going to have to change the name on the school and uniforms and stuff like that. They had discussed it a little bit, but they didn't really have a solid figure, or they were looking into it at the time. So have we come up with anything on that? Just kind of curious.
Not too much comes up between meetings, so we might hear something back. You know, there's not an urgent deadline on any of it, so the name on the building will change at some point. And the outside of East has been renovated. You know, if we were a year or two away from doing some major renovation that would include where the name is, it would happen then, I think. But I don't think East is in that situation. I don't think the name will change on uniforms or more what I would call less formal things. Part of it was the choice of the new name is Betty Davis East Anchorage High School. So a lot of us feel like everyone's going to keep calling it East.
Yeah.
Like there's not going to be a push to try to make people say Davis High School. And I don't think they'll change uniforms to say Davis. People identify East as East, and they want that to stay. So I don't think that'll change. The diplomas, I'm sure, will have the full name across it. I'm not sure how many other places it's spelled out that way, but I don't think it'll be rapid. I don't think it's something where we will spend a whole bunch of money right away. Someone said that the website and some of the other online things have already been done. I imagine that cost is pretty nominal. It'd be done by IT staff.
Personally, I think it's I've been in a school that's had a name change, and it does take some time. So I think that it was a great idea. I think that the timing is not very good with COVID here. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there are no further questions about the school board update, I'd like to move on to candidates for public office. We keep this fairly brief. Carl Jacobs, I think I'll start with you. And Heather, if you could give a heads up to Calvin that if he wants to join this section.
Will do.
Okay. Carl?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Carl Jacobs here. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I'm running for Anchorage School Board on the upcoming April municipal election. It's been my pleasure to spend the summer with you folks at your community council meetings, and I appreciate you letting me sit in, although I'm not a member. Value listening in during the important conversations that are had here. And I understand that what happens at the municipal level and the assembly meetings often starts here. So thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and to keep things brief, I'll go ahead and put my website, social media, contact information here in the chat. I'm running to try and provide increased stability and leadership to the school board. I would appreciate your time and consideration, and the election is still quite some time away, and I plan on being at future meetings, so I'll be around and look forward to conversing with you folks as the months go on. Thank you.
Thank you. Calvin, are you online with us yet?
Yeah, great timing. I actually just finished up here for the evening. So did you want a roads and projects update now?
No, this is the candidates introduction section.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, so hello, everyone. Sorry about the radio in the background. Just got into the truck here. My name's Calvin Schrage. I am running for State House. We have an election just a couple days away. I'm really running because we have some major challenges to solve here as a state. We've got a fiscal crisis, a budget deficit of more than $2 billion projected. That's half of our state budget. We are going to need to make some further cuts. At the same time, we've got to have schools, a university, public safety, mental health care. I mean, there are services that we really depend on as a community, as an economy, as a state, and we've got to make sure that those remain strong. So we've got to have some very tough conversations about how we're going to fund those services that we rely on. They're not fun conversations to have, but we're out of time. Our savings are drained, and we have a deficit. I think it's a real problem that we've got a budget based on the price of a barrel of oil and not based on the needs of our people. So, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have. My cell phone number is 907-240-8986. And of course, you can learn more on my website at calvinforalaska.com. And just please, if you have any questions here ahead of the election, reach out. I'll answer any and every question you might have. And I just sure would appreciate everyone's vote on or before November 3rd. And just a plug, early voting is still open 8 to 5 tomorrow. I believe it's 10 to 4 on Saturday and 12 to 4 on Sunday. And I have no idea what election day is going to look like, but early voting is a great option and something that's accessible right now. So thanks, everyone. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Calvin. Andy Holloman, would you like to jump in?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm a candidate for Senate Seat M. Kind of 2 careers, and most of it played out in South Anchorage as well. As I say, I've been fortunate to live and work for the most part in South Anchorage for almost 3 decades. I started at the Anchorage Golf Course in the late 80s when it was being built. I used to work as a mechanic, agricultural, construction equipment, odd stuff that you don't normally see that often. Later, I completed a degree in biology at the University of Alaska and taught ASD for 20 years and retired out of there a few years back. Being in education caused me to watch the budget process in Juneau a lot. And here I'm going to sound a little bit like Calvin. We all saw this coming year by year, where the legislature simply did not address the fact that oil price had changed and something needed to be done. They were able to solve the problem by pulling money out of savings, out of the CBR year after year, and have gotten us to the point where that's not going to be an option this year. We have to do something different. If we do dramatic cuts that are not sustainable, it just turns things chaotic. It doesn't really save us money if the legislature is forced to put funds back into it, and it causes people not to trust the government, not to consider them a dependable partner. I do want to get us to a budget that we'll be able to come back and repeat year after year, so our agencies can do the work they do and focus on that without the chaos and disruption of dramatic cuts and swings back and forth. I appreciate your support when you go vote, if you haven't voted yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other candidates for public office present who would like to introduce themselves? Okay. If not, I'm going to move on to some of our committee reports. The representative to the Federation of Community Councils, where all of the community councils have a representative that meets once a month. So I'd like to briefly cover some of the items that we went over at our last Federation of Community Council meeting. One thing that did come up during the school board presentation there is that Anchorage School District buildings are now open for community council meetings. This does require a mitigation plan, such things as wipes, signage, dealing with getting into and out of the building, masks, the whole sort of thing. If people want to weigh in tonight what they think about this, I personally am to wait and do Zoom meetings such as this. It's actually interesting that we seem to have a pretty good attendance. Maybe it's from the convenience of coming to the meeting from your home, but if we could have some comments on that later, if anybody would like. The mayor's office gave an update as to the CARES Act funding and how that's rolling out through Anchorage, how much has been spent or distributed thus far. Again, Felix was there to give a assembly report very similar to tonight. Margot Bellamy from the school district, from the school board, was there to talk about East High and the opening of the schools. Again, as Andy's mentioned, probably just kindergarten through second grade initially. Chugach Electric was there to present about the closing of municipal light and power being purchased by Chugach Electric, as Felix had mentioned earlier, I believe. And it's kind of a quick summary. So it's a meeting similar tonight, only it encompasses all the community councils throughout Anchorage. And we often do have interesting presentation from the mayor, from the police department, from different municipal departments. So it's often a very informative meeting, and it is open to the public as well, but generally public participation is just audience participation at the back of the room. Okay. So Calvin Schrage, are you around to talk about the Roads and Projects Committee?
Yes, I am, Bruce. Sorry, you probably can't see me. There we go.
Yes, we can.
And okay, very good. So I don't have much for Roads and Projects. what I will say is that I did hear back from the municipality about the issue with parking there along Brayton Drive. I'm failing to remember the exact street name as I don't have the notes in front of me, but he had some very useful information, I believe, to the resident there. Specifically that there's very little that can be done about signage. In fact, it would be illegal to put any signage up there limiting parking or otherwise. And his advice was that the residents of that area just get relentless about calling in code violations. And he said that we pulled it up on Google Street View and took a look at the streets there, and there's no parking anywhere along that curve next to the resident's home. So you have to park at least 20 feet away from the point of curvature. So where the curb curves, 20 feet away from where that curve.
You lost him.
Calvin, it looks like you've locked up for us. This is, I believe, there you are again.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, now you're back.
Lost
Where did I cut it?
Curvature.
Perfect. So you have to park at least 20 feet away from the start of the curve. So most of the parking that has been complained about in that residential neighborhood is based on the code, not legal. And so we need, so the advice from the municipality was just to call in those violations frequently, because if the police find this to be a bit of a nuisance and that they're having to go in there all the time to enforce those fairly obscure code rules, that the police department will request no parking signage, and that could potentially solve the issues with parking there along the road and along that woman's house. So his advice was just to get very relentless about calling in those violations, to the point that APD realizes it's a serious issue and goes to code enforcement to request signage. And there were a couple other notes, but again, I'm sorry, I don't have those in front of me this evening, but I did want to just provide that feedback.
Maybe I could do a quick update on the whole situation. That I believe this is Cedrus Court, where this parking problem was taking place, and that people were parking outside of a woman's home and had access to the trailer park behind, which they had been kicked out of. Via this parking nearby. So it was an ongoing situation that we've been trying to resolve for a little while. So I saw some other comments or questions coming up. Dustin, did you have a comment or a question for roads and projects at how to get Commodore Drive fixed?
Yeah. So I live on Commodore Drive, and there's a section of the road that never gets touched whenever it snows. And actually, you can even go out here right now. The whole neighborhood, everywhere around us, is completely dry except for this one section. And it's, I don't know if it's the drainage or what the deal is, but if you come down Commodore Drive right off of, I'm sorry, my brain just drew a blank.
O'Malley?
Yeah, if you get off O'Malley and you come down Commodore Drive, there's a cross street that goes down into Independence Park. If you go past that stop sign and you come down into the neighborhood, there's like in a cul-de-sac. It goes around in a circle, and then it comes back onto that one street. The circle area, the part that curves around, it never gets touched when it snows. I literally, and my neighbors and stuff, toward the cul-de-sac, we all have to put our vehicles in four-wheel drive to pull out of our driveways. Doesn't matter how much we shovel our driveways, everything else. The street is always like another foot deeper than everywhere else. And it would be nice to have that done. Or at least sanded or something. I don't know, even tonight, and the roads are dry everywhere else, but this corner is just always nasty. So I don't know if someone could take note of that and see if we can't get that taken care of. It just seems that we, half a block, it's never touched.
So I think Meg has responded to your request.
I just seen it actually.
Members, Assembly members are a great point of contact for chasing things down like this.
Thank you.
Let's see. Parks and Recreation. Have a representative that would like to update us on that committee?
Yeah, I'm here. There's not really much to update. So other than the parks are still all open, of course, and it's a great place to exercise and social distance. And if you like to ski or be on snow, I've been up out of the parking lot, trailheads, Upper O'Malley, Prospect, Glen Alps, and there's lots of snow. There's actually enough to go skiing on. It's beautiful. You get above the clouds and the sunshine, and if you get a chance, I highly recommend it to sort of recharge your batteries. One thing of note, there was that area blocked off over by I call it the Elmore ball fields, between there and the access into the Science Creek, the Science Center off Camel Creek there. From my understanding, they thought maybe there was a bear on a moose kill. They didn't actually see actual carcass, but because of all the activity there and a man being charged 3 times by a brown bear, they wisely signed it to keep people away. So the bears are still out there, so don't let your guard down, but get out and enjoy the parks. And that's it. So no new updates. Thank you.
Cannabis and Alcohol Committee, Sheila, give us a little update there.
The committee. So I've been going to all the marijuana stores and checking them all out, sampling their wares. No, I have not. No, I really don't have anything to report right now. I'll do better after the election system is over with.
Okay. Yeah, since you just recently took over this committee, we'll give you a little bit of leeway. And and we have had a couple polls that come through from time to time. I believe Hollyweed 907 is in that situation as well, and possibly a transfer of ownership from, I think, one family member or one relative to another.
Hollyweed gave us lots of money that one year for our picnic. We need to be nice to them.
Actually, that was Danish Gardens. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Hollyweed is the one on 88th?
Yes.
Okay. I'll drop by him.
Right. And the other one was on Cinnabar Loop. And just to inform people that we do have a number of cannabis businesses in our area, either cultivation, manufacturing, or retail. And that's because we have kind of a strip of industrial business-related area between Lake Otis and the highway. So between Taku, Campbell Community Council, and Abbott Loop Community Council, there are a lot of cannabis
I went
businesses.
property. Yeah.
Membership and events. Does he have any information for us?
No.
Maybe just to give people a heads up that normally we have picnics in the summertime in June and July. See if we get that going this next year.
I hope so.
Okay, thank you. Abbott Loop Community Control. Dan Rutter, you want to give us an update there?
Yes, thank you, Bruce. I've got just a couple quick notes. We've got about 8 hours projected for the month. There was a call from a business down where Diamond curves into Abbott, or vice versa, and they told me that there was some homeless people like starting fires near their building. There's like an overhang, so they asked me to see what I could do. I drove over there that night actually, and I just sat there for about 20 minutes, and there appeared to be a couple trying to sleep. there. And after I sat in the parking lot about 20 minutes, maybe 150 yards away from them, they decided to pack up. I didn't get a chance to call it in or report it or anything. I also wasn't successful in contacting the 211 or anybody regarding like resources or anything that I might be able to communicate in case there are situations like that. So if anyone has information like that I could pass on, I think that would be very helpful. I haven't seen any activity since then in that location. As far as Calvin talking about the code enforcement, I would like more information about that so that we can keep an eye on that as we're doing our patrols, and we can, maybe keep an eye on that and make those calls in as well if we need to. And we can take a look at vandalism and reports of vandalism in the parks and things like that. There was a question in the chat, so I'm going to put my email address in the chat right now. So if anybody has anything to say or report, please pass that on via email.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Glad you covered that chat question.
Of course.
Okay. Any other vandalism, crime concerns, whatever, before we move on to our old business? Next on our agenda is the Solid Waste Services new Central Transfer Station. Dowell is represented this evening to give us an update on that project. Is that you, Katie?
Nope, that is Laquita, and it looks like she's just started to share her screen.
Okay, great, thank you.
There we go. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can now.
So I will make this really quick. My name is Laquita Chmielowski. I am with Dal. I'm part of the design team working on the new Solid Waste Central Transfer Station. Many of you saw me on a pretty regular basis last year at about the same time. And we have been working hard on the design and construction, and just wanted to come back and give you a quick update of what's been going on. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this site plan that is for the new Central Transfer Station. And just to orient everyone, the existing Central Transfer Station is right here on the at the top of your screen. That's the existing administration building. This is the New Seward Highway on the right-hand side of the screen, Dowling Road down at the bottom. So the new Central Transfer Station is going to be essentially across the street from the existing one. The large gray block that you see here is the administration building, along with the tipping floor. So and then all the roads that you see coming in and out are, whether you're coming in as residential users or commercial or transfer trailers. So these are the roads coming in and out of the facility to drop trash. This is what the building will look like when it's all constructed. So in the front here, you see the administration building and office space. That's the small portion that kind of bumps out from the building. And then in the back is the actual floor and transfer building that everybody would utilize when you come to drop off your trash. So in July, we had a groundbreaking ceremony. Of course, we were being socially responsible, but we felt it was really important to take a minute and recognize all the hard work by the entire team, Solid Waste, Tetra Tech, Dow, Dave instructors, everybody involved that got us to this point so that we could start construction. And so if you haven't been by the site, there's a lot that's on. Davis Constructors is the contractor that'll be doing the work, and they have been busy doing grading activities as well as installing utilities. And that's what you see in this photo is the grading activities that they started this summer. And they've also started putting in foundations for the main building, and they'll be finishing up here, well, actually any day now, and shutting down for the winter, and then begin construction again in the spring. So I just want to take a minute to thank all of you for all your input. It was really important, not only from the design team's perspective to make sure we had a facility that met people's needs, but for solid waste too. We got a lot of great feedback on the types of services that folks would like to see once the new facilities open. If you have, if you want up-to-date information, the best way to do that is to visit our project webpage, which is listed here on the screen, or you can go to Solid Waste Services main webpage. There is a link to the project webpage. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Peter, what happened to the incinerator part of the project? Doing that?
So I can let Susanna speak in more detail, but right now the project includes the central transfer station and support facilities. I know there's a study in process for looking at waste to energy, but that is not part of this project.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Susanna Caldwell. I'm the recycling coordinator at Solid Waste Services. I also serve as the public information officer. Yeah, we were exploring waste to energy as a potential disposal option for Anchorage. It's completely separate from this project. And again, it has just been, we've just been looking at it. There's no happening right now.
Just to clarify for people that this is not officially within our community council district, but it's right across the highway from us. Further question on transfer station? I'd like to proceed on to the Bruce Street Extension project. Katie Conway, are you going to be heading that up?
Actually, Irene is going to give our update, but I'll be here to help. And I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat window once she gets started.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone, my name is Irene, and I'm a transportation engineer with Dowell, working with the municipality in the Spruce Street Extension project. So I'm going to be giving just a brief update on what's occurred with the project so far this year and what the next steps are going to be. So earlier this year, we had a virtual public meeting that was held over Skype and a teleconference, and was attended by approximately 30 stakeholders. Now, prior to that meeting, a postcard was sent out to folks about 10 to 14 days before, just notifying them. The meeting summary is available on the project website. Katie has pasted that into the chat box. So more recently, the project was actually brought forward on August 3rd, where we presented a 35%. So P&Z issued a resolution approving the context design study report for the project just last September 14th. And within that resolution, they had 3 findings that they did. So the findings that P&Z found were the project does meet the requirements of the CS process. The design study report application submitted was thorough and well documented. And the final one was that the project team did analyze several alternatives for the design of the Spruce Street 4th Avenue section. And they wanted to consider amending the design just to improve the connectivity for bikeway that just traverses that. Now, the 3 conditions that the commission approved for the preferred alternative. So what they wanted to see was patch sidewalk on the west side of the road, preferred alternative widened to at least currently our design 5-foot sidewalk. and to add bicycle symbol signage and marking the bike lanes. And then also just to resolve with the Muni Traffic Department the need to between 6 East Dowling for Spruce from 5 to hour. So just in response to these conditions, the municipality and Dowell are doing the following: are currently again reviewing alternatives for the intersection at 64th, because just recently the municipality was actually able to purchase that property on the southeast corner of that intersection. And just the primary consideration for the alternative traffic and just a way to slow down the traffic moving through that point. And this is in direct response from, you know, the previous requests that we've heard from our state. And also Dowell is working with the any street maintenance and traffic to resolve the recommendation and the overall. So for now, our next steps are going to be have the project website updated in the next with a figure of the intersection concept first. We will be submitting our 65% design plans to the Urban Design Committee by in the midwinter timeframe. And a second public meeting will be scheduled prior to that UD. And so, yeah, we're looking at possibly having construction start in 2020. And so Katie also will add the in the chat box the email address for the project. So if you guys have any questions or additional concerns, please send us an email so that we could properly document and
Can you also share at maybe one of our future meetings a share screen, for example, so people could see this visually? Do we have any questions, concerns about the project here? Anybody raising their hand?
Elizabeth has her hand raised.
I'm just like, with Dowell, could you guys announce how much the project is currently going to cost?
Edie or Irene, would you add that?
Are you, let me ask a clarifying question. Do you mean the future cost of construction, or the cost of everything up until right now and the design work that's happening currently?
So the last time we were quoted, it was $6 million, and then at planning and zoning, it had gone up to $2. That's changed since then.
Elizabeth, I'm really sorry. I actually don't know the answer to your question. I will have to get back to you. But what I can do is circle back with the whole team and send an answer to Bruce to distribute to the community council, if that works for you.
Yes, please. My big concern was the purchase of that new property out on 64th I'm Street extension adjacent, and that purchase of that property is just making my brain that $10 million cost go up. I attended the planning and zoning meeting the last time, and was that the last time they took traffic counting numbers that the traffic had dropped. And so I'm just really confused as an Abbott Loop community member why a new road would be placed when traffic's dropping here. So I'm just trying to figure out, especially in times of COVID, I'm hearing that not a lot of money in the budget and a $10 million road where there's never been a road, to me, is mind-boggling. That's my.
Yeah, I would just like to echo, can you hear me? This is Emily.
Yes,
I would like to echo Elizabeth's concerns. I've looked thoroughly through all of Dowell's information on their website, and the traffic data that they're using is from 2006, stating that there's 4,000 cars a day on Norm Drive. There are not 4,000 cars a day driving on Norm Drive. I would love to see updated data. I have been living on Dowell for less than a year, but I've been living in this neighborhood for a number of years as a renter prior to living on Dowell. So I'm not new to the area. I'm super familiar with the way traffic works in this area. Cannot see the need for this road whatsoever. Every time I've spoken to anyone about the project, they say that it's to reduce traffic on Norm Drive. I again will reiterate, there's not an issue with traffic on Norm Drive. And if you look at a map of our area, there's a variety of large blocks of land that do not have a through road. So the city's saying that we need a through road in this like very small block of land when Elmore runs north to south and like Otis run north to south. And Norm gets you out of there. Like I just can't understand why within this half-mile distance we're going to build a $6 million road. I've also heard issues with drainage in the area, and I don't think that building a brand new road is the answer. I think we could improve our existing roads. I know the road I currently live on could use a lot of work. I know 64th could use a lot of work. I know that the west side of 64th was upgraded, but the east side never was. If we're going to spend $6 million on road projects, I don't think building a new road is the answer.
Katie or Irene, do you have any responses?
Emily, we appreciate. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Irene.
I just wanted to say one thing that was mentioned about the drain was for the homes that along Doyle Drive that back up to right now the undeveloped area. So we've heard multiple accounts of folks having to pump pumps for a number of days during up and saturate. So I just wanted to assure you all that when we're actually designing the road, we take that into account, and we're working our hydrologists to prevent and reduce the amount of water that actually those homes, alleviate those drainage concerns.
So are you then saying that that is a purpose of the road, or that is a consideration of building the road?
It's going to be a consideration how we're building.
Okay. It seems, I just also want to, I just want to clarify as well that, I've heard from a lot of my neighbors that they also do not see the need for this road. There's a lot of folks in opposition to it. I'm seeing a lot of agreement in the comments. I just want to make sure that our assembly members and those representing us in the area and those who have control over the budget are paying attention to that, and not just the representatives of Dowell. Because, I've heard that Dowell is interested in public testimony, but everybody I've talked to nearby who has had contact with folks feels like they're not being listened to. So I'm more interested in making sure that like I said, the assembly members on this call, and that Bruce and that Calvin and that the folks in this area who have input on this are paying attention to the people who A, don't feel this is necessary, and B, have other ideas for where those funds could go to roads that need them.
So if I could ask a clarifying question here, wasn't this scheduled at one point for 2021, 2022, and now you're getting it delayed? Is that correct? Construction time?
That's what I had heard was 2020.
Yeah. So I guess part of my question is this is not going on package, correct?
I believe that's true, Bruce. This construction of the project is entirely funding dependent, and that has been one of the reasons for the protracted timeline.
Felix or Meg, do you have any comments about where the budget or bond
Yeah, I'm happy
money
to talk.
for this stands?
So this is actually great timing because we're in budget season, so it's pretty easy for us to find her and look it up. So okay, so I just looked and I just want to clarify. So this is the Spruce upgrade extension Dowling Road to 68th. Is that what this
Yes.
Okay. So this project is scheduled on the bonds for 2025, 2026. 2.4 million in 2025, 4 million. Obviously, this doesn't match what planning and zoning looked at in September. This budget came out probably prior to that, or was developed prior to that. There was a comment in the chat about Norm Drive, and I'm happy to talk to street maintenance about resurfacing. Typically, every year, there's a certain amount of dollars put in the budget for street maintenance to be able to resurface and repair roads. I'm happy to talk to them, see if they can put that on. And
Norm would really appreciate that, Felix. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I just want to. I know some folks had wanted to assure that we were listening. We are listening. Meg and I are happy to look at the project.
Bruce, this is John. Could I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
So well, I heard the comments on Norm Drive and that was excessive. Now, are we talking about? Because I think Spruce, part of that was, doesn't that lead to a new snow dump? And that
Okay, on the snow dump, and that's why I wish that out shared this. There is a municipal snow dump going to be to the east of this road, of Spruce Road. There's currently a snow dump entrance off of Dowling, snow dump off of 64th, popping a little something. And currently between Dowling and 64th, there is no road. It's a very swampy wetland area. I walked it in summertime 2 years ago or so. It was very damp and very difficult to walk across it. No real established trail. I was certainly jumping from dry spot to dry spot if I could. So that's the part where there would be a new road and drainage in that area. There would be storm drains along the side of the road, so that would help with the water problem in that area. Also, from 64th to 68th, which is an existing road, it's I don't know, poor to moderate condition. Most of the homes on that road have driveways with no culverts, slight ditch. So the drainage along that whole section is very poor as well.
Where did you just say that was?
From 64th to 6, yeah, half of the project.
Yeah, I mean, there's issues with 64th as well, like the whole along the side of 64th also floods. They've upgraded the whole west side of 64th. Why aren't we looking at upgrading instead the east side of 64th? I hear no justification for a new road. I cannot understand the need for a new road. The traffic data is 14 years old, 14-year-old traffic data. If you look at the map, and I would love to talk to the roads committee about this, but if you look at a map of our area, I spoke to somebody at the city, I think maybe she's on this call, I'm not sure. He said, you know, it's something about meeting the city's quota for through streets. I'm probably misquoting her, but it was something along those lines. If you look between Abbott and Dowling, there's nothing cutting east to west besides 68. That's a way bigger stretch. It's about 4 times as big as the stretch that currently exists without a road through from Dowling to. We don't have traffic in this neighborhood. You're talking about relieving traffic. This would increase traffic, raise the speed. I mean, like, if somebody can justify me the need for the road, I might stop making a fuss about it. But I live here and I don't see the need. It's a $6 to $10 million plus project, and we don't need it.
And I'd like to just address a couple of your comments as well. Well, first of all, there is a roads and projects committee. You are asked by the municipality to upgrade our priority. Typically happens March to time frame. Usually asked to submit our final recommendation by the end of May. And so we certainly welcome people to attend the Roads and Projects Committee meeting to help evaluate projects, submit comments and so forth. There has been a request. I mean, there are 4 different projects listed in this list. I think there's between 26 and 30 projects on this list. Make through roads between Elmore and Lake Otis. 72nd, 80th, 84th. What's the other one I'm forgetting? Possibly Thor Road as well. And yeah, so there are projects been on this for quite a while to help improve access to its areas. And I thought this one was coming a little bit closer to fruition. Apparently has been delayed. I'll just kind of end my comments there. Sheila Cernich, you still have your hand up? You have a question about this as well?
You're on mute, Sheila. She's talking, but she's on mute.
Try that again.
Now can you hear me?
Finally.
Okay, sorry. Let me start again. Having been in road construction for 30 years or more, I actually helped do the project on 64th on the west side of the road. And a lot of that was because of these projects go to these engineering companies. They're planned in the budget many years before they ever. And there is public comment time on this project, and there was a lot of public comment on the project. And I understand the neighborhood's concern, but this money is road won't go through if it's not funded, unless it's a state road. It's not. So the public comment is very important. Now that the project is going forward, there's still time to make comments and different things that can be changed. But as far as the road going through, as long as it's funded, it's going to go. I mean, that's how I understand. Am I right, Maureen? Maureen, isn't that basically how it works?
I could comment that I don't think the road is really funded at this point.
No,
the design has been funded to this point. Yeah. Excuse me?
Just to 65% at this meeting.
I believe that's true. Irene probably confirmed that.
Yeah, we'll have to follow up.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like this is something that we'll want to keep on discussing. I'm glad it's not such a pressing in terms of something that's going to be decided in this budget and so forth. So I still see a couple of questions. Julie, do you have your hand up?
Yes. Again, Julie Makla. I work for the municipality of Anchorage Project Management and Engineering Department. I am the project for the Spruce Street upgrade and extension project. And so to answer a couple of questions, I believe overall budget probably realm of $10 million. Keep that in several past years, and I'm not sure what year it was on the bond, that this project has been funded. It is currently funded through final design, which will give us a plan set and specifications that are ready for bidding. And then the rest will be breaking the project up into phases. And I am not currently sure which phase will be constructed first, but due to funding, you have to break.
So since we're getting close to 8:30, that we can kind of wrap up this discussion on this topic for this evening and then continue it at other council meetings. But just to kind of wrap up a couple of things here, if I could, unless anybody has any pressing, burning questions going on. So Bill Taylor will not be presenting tonight about the fire sprinkler system side. He's going to be asking us for a resolution against this. It has been decided at the assembly and exemption to that requirement. And I had hoped that we would have a little bit of time for discussion of the mayor's emergency declaration. But maybe it's just to introduce this topic at this point, although I believe it's currently set to expire on November 15th. Is that correct, Felix or Meg?
I believe it's set to expire at the end of November.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So I guess just to give a quick overview of what the assembly did. So the assembly, through a combination, we amended the declaration, extension of it. And in essence, the extension required two things. One, the next time that this is up before the body, that we have, and then two, that we transition away from emergency orders into some code. So what that looks like is right now, and that Dan LaFrance are working on an ordinance that basically gives this mechanism. So that is something that's reviewed by the body before the declaration. But there's going to be a lot more discussed about that.
Hey, what do you mean? What would be the difference between something being, I guess, in code instead of EO, I guess?
Yeah, so that for me falls under the category of there's a lot of points to it where that I just, so that's something that Suzanne and Crystal said on the floor, and to transition away from emergency orders, permanent solution. What that looks like, it's unknown. The ordinances are being worked on. Drafts will be available to the public. We'll have a hearing. We'll make sure robust public process.
Okay, and would those codes be permanent, or would they be temporary, or is that all to be
discussed? It could be either. Yeah, it could be permanent, or more than likely what it'll be is sort of a date certain. These things are enacted. The assembly 2 weeks.
Okay.
Can I jump in a little bit, Bruce? Do we have time?
I want to know what the benefits.
So, since there seems to be some interest in this topic, but just to quickly note that this is something that I think the Assembly would like public input and public comments about, and we will be having on November on the 21st. So it's going to be a week early. Normally we meet on the last Thursday of the month. For November, we would like to move it up to the 21st because of Thanksgiving holiday. And some people don't want to have a meeting on Thanksgiving Day. So we hopefully will have time to continue this discussion. Give it back to John from here.
Okay, well, I'll be brief. We did something in this spring when this just kind of sprung on us, and the question was, what can be done, and what can the mayor do in a health emergency? And we created a section of code 3.65, I don't know, something like that, that talks about that, and we set sort of some rails on what the mayor could do. And we were kind of, then we were thinking, could he, force everybody to get vaccinated, force everybody to get tested, things like that. So we really tightened that up to make sure that things were appropriate. And that was actually initiated by the mayor. Meg had a huge role in kind of setting some of those the side rails on it. And I think we're heading that way with this, is saying, okay, what are the things that could be done, and what would be the process for doing them, and what would be the trigger? As opposed to saying, looking at each of the emergency orders and putting those into code. And this is, you're just getting a really early view here, because this is talking to the attorneys, talking to a few other people, and just saying, what are the ways to go here? But we're working on that very briskly, trying to get something ready before the end of November.
John, my question, this is Dustin Sherman, by the way. My question on something like that is that what led to, like, Andy Kreiner getting the huge fines that he got?
Well, not the work that we're doing to put things in code. That's a separate thing. But that would be the emergency order did, because emergency order is a mandate equals a law. Okay, and the law was you're shut down. I think that, I don't remember. I think, was he supposed to be closed? Wasn't? But if it said he was supposed to be closed and he didn't close, he broke the law and dealt with. So working on these, we could address that and say, okay, what would be the penalty if someone broke this?
I think that there needs to be a distinction, and I think the assembly or the mayor, the acting mayor, needs to make a distinction that a mandate or whatever is a law, because a lot of people in the city don't understand that. They really don't.
Right. Yeah, no, I dealt with a woman the other day who said that. So anyway, that's probably enough on that for now.
Break in here. I think we're getting into some details that are probably just further point now. I've been corrected. I was thinking 21st, but it's Thursday, November 19th, our next meeting. Normally doing a regular. Excuse me?
I just want to raise something on the timing. That the meeting that you have on the 19th will be after our regular assembly meeting on the 17th. I don't know if we'll be taking this up on the 17th or if, because we don't convene again until December. I just wanted to raise that.
Quick preview. And Meg doesn't know this because I haven't talked to the assembly about it. But no, we won't be taking this up on this.
We'll be having a special meeting like this. Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to kind of wrap this up that normally in November we have a combined November-December holiday meeting. If it was a normal year, we would have a potluck socializing event at Abbott Loop Elementary School. So we'll see if this next meeting is a little bit more informal or want to share things or whatever, but given the level of interest and participation and the topics that are ongoing, I'm expecting it'll probably be more of a regular meeting, of a Zoom meeting tonight. So are there any other announcements, concerns for the good of the community?
Yeah, Bruce.
Otherwise,
Rick Phillips.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up real quick. I'm a volunteer for the Fair Share Act, the Yes on Ballot measure. And one of the things that biggest challenge for the state right now is bringing in revenue. All the candidates are talking about that. The Fair Share Act, what the three major points are: the Fair Share Act will change production tax on the three major oil fields, say Alpine and Kupark. It won't affect any of the smaller fields. Before Senate Bill 21, the state got over 20% production tax. Now the state gets between 4%. The Fair Share Act changes at the 10% when oil is at $50 a barrel, goes up 1% every $5 increase to a maximum of 15%. Also ring fencing. They can only use deductions where they're drilling. They can't work in the NPRA and take that $300 million they spend there off. Okay. Transparency. We need to know what the cost, the profits, and expenses are for the oil companies. We only get that from ConocoPhillips, so we don't get all that. State auditor couldn't even finish the state audit this year because we didn't have the sufficient oil tax information. One of the things that we're, that's kind of bad is the One Alaska commercials are saying that we are funded from outside sources. 99% of our donations are from Alaskans, when their commercials are paid 96 or more percent by outside international companies from London, England, and from Texas. Their one good commercial was the volleyball mom said that it would bring in $1.1 billion. It won't balance the budget, but yet that's something to look forward to. And one of the things on royalty, during the 2006 vehicle corruption in the legislature, where 10% of the legislatures had charges against them or went to jail. At that time, the state was fighting for 25%. Oil companies wanted 20%, settled at 22%. Right now, we're getting 12.5%. So I know I have more to say. It's at the end of the meeting, but it's important that everybody looks at what happened before Senate bill went into effect in 2014. We had $19 billion coming in. Now we have 17 billion or less, and we've used all of our savings as.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up now. Because,
okay.
Usually we limit to 3 minutes. And thank you very much for your comments.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other concerns or announcements? Not, we will see you on November 19th, Thursday, another Zoom meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Assembly members.
Thank you. Thank you to our Assembly members who are very responsible in virtually every community council meeting.
Absolutely.
May I make a motion that we to end this meeting? We need a motion.
I thought I was going to take executive privilege.
I just love seeing all your smiling faces.
You can second, Sheila.
If there are no objections, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Everyone have a good month.